Well, I hope that this series of 4 studies has been good for you as we've been thinking about biblical friendship and about building those things up and really the importance of them. This is our final week thinking about it. Acts 2:42 talks about fellowship as one of those great foundational elements of the early church. And so over in the Proverbs, there's much to be learned about friendships and about interacting with godly people. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, whereas a brother is born for adversity. And so far, we have learned 3 major ideas about biblical friendship. One is that friendship is really the only purely deliberate relationship we have in our lives. Every other relationship serves the purpose of both friendship and something else, whether that's the family love or maybe a friendship that we have within our workplace or out in the community. There are different roles that people play, but friendship is just that one relationship that just exists for itself. And also we learned in our second study that friendship is really something that can only be discovered, where you come alongside somebody and you both discover you believe the same things about something and you have the same goals in life, the same outlook on life. And this becomes a foundation for something that's very, very valuable for your relationship with each other. And how important is that for us within the church, where we share the same core beliefs about God and about Jesus and about salvation and about our mission in life. And then thirdly, friendship must be forged and built. And that's what we looked at last week. Friendship is something that the Proverbs say everywhere. It has to be something where we approach it with carefulness and yet an openness and an honesty. And it has to be something that we have an intentionality about, where we have to be practicing it so that those relationships can be built up. And so today we close out our biblical study of friendship by thinking about from whom we get the power to create and keep these great spiritual friendships. And that is that we get the power for friendship from the example of Jesus. So if you think about Jesus for a moment, I want you to imagine Jesus as our template. That in the person of Jesus, we have a picture of the ideal friend, of the friend for whom we long, that we wish we had a friend like Jesus when we start thinking about it. But we're crushed by thinking about that, because then we think about the fact that we ourselves don't live as that ideal friend like Jesus, that we have a lot of work to do within ourselves. And so where do we go to get the power to be the friend we need to be so we can have the friends we need to have in our lives? And so we're driven to a text like John 15, verse 15, where Jesus looks at, as we talked about in an earlier session, he looks at his closest friends on planet Earth. Out of all of his friends, these are his closest friends. And he says, no longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but now I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I've now made known to you. There's a very, very great truth in the idea that Jesus is someone to be revered and to be honored and respected and praised and worshiped. At the same time, Jesus invites us to think of him as the elder brother and as the dearest friend. And so when Jesus looks at his disciples, and by extension, those of us who would follow him, and we see him as the ideal, perfect friend, suddenly the way we look at the whole world can now be understood in terms of the idea of friendship. You go all the way back to the book of Genesis. One of the great moments in the book of Genesis is this ideal time in which Adam was able to walk with Yahweh in the garden, step for step, in the cool of the day. It's sort of a throwaway line, and we don't often stop and think about it. And it is really the most beautiful of thoughts, that there was a time in which human beings walked side by side with God. And really, isn't that what we're striving to get back towards? Where there are no more barriers between ourselves and our friendship and walking with God. In the Hebrew Bible, to walk with somebody was therefore a metaphor for friendship. It brought up this idea of a time, an idyllic time in which we could walk with God. And so there's a very real sense in which God has made us for a friendship with Him. And He's made us for a friendship with one another. And so in Jesus, we could say that Jesus is the person who can say, I am the ultimate friend who loves at all times. I am the friend born for adversity. I am the friend to whom you can cleave to at an infinite cost to myself so that your life would not be ruined. I am the friend whose wounds are the wounds of love, because instead of inflicting them, I am taking your wounds upon myself. C.S. Lewis wrote some lines about friendship that are incredibly valuable. And he says, we think we have chosen our peers, but for a Christian, there are, strictly speaking, no chances. That is, there's a secret master of ceremonies at work. Christ, who said to the disciples, ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, can truly say to every group of Christian friends, you have not chosen one another, but I have chosen you for one another. So within the church, we have been created by Jesus to be friends with one another. The master of ceremonies has set up the church to be that group. And I want to encourage you to be reaching out, not just in these 4 sessions as we've talked about, but to continue to make it a habitual practice to forge and to build spiritually encouraging and deep friendships with Jesus at the center of those friendships, with really Jesus as the central friend who sticks closer even than a brother.